Okay, hi everyone. We're the Research Data Management Group. So Research Data Management is dealing with a new issue right now, or a new opportunity really, where the White House has put forth a memo that says digitally formatted scientific data resulting from unclassified research supported wholly or in part by federal funding should be stored and publicly accessible to search, retrieve, and analyze. And we need to have this rolling within the next 6 months. So we're going from lots of theory and ideas. Let me get the exact terms that we came up with. Questions about policy really is what we're going. We're going from questions about policy to forced implementation. So we are contending with all of these opportunities right now. There are a lot of fantastic groups that are out there that are working on research data management and have put forth a lot of really good ideas. But people are still lacking a common forum to discuss these ideas. They're going to many different groups, and we think that there could be a quicker way to really get together and form best practices if we are to have a single website with multiple forums. That way, people who specialize in curating information from different types of physicians, for example, autism doctor, can meet with other information specialists who curate information for autism doctors and develop these standards. So that's the bulk of everything that we had to say.
Thank you. So now I'm going to hop over to this group. I hope you've decided by the time I get there. Anjum.
Hi, everyone. And I'm going to keep this far away so my voice doesn't go too loud. We were looking at evaluating next generation documents for tenure and promotion. I hope I said the topic right. And we had a very heated discussion, but we were very concise in summarizing it. So the 3 points that we came to conclusion was that there's a lot of concern about trusting articles published in open access journals. So it was to improve the quality of open access journals by getting a more robust editorial board to evaluate the articles submitted in the journals, and to have high quality reviewers. Also to get the publishers aboard to advocate for open access and help us with some of the issues. And the last thing was that we realized that a lot of the concerns with publishing articles in open access journals varied greatly by discipline. It was very different in the sciences versus the social sciences. And that was kind of the gist of what we discussed.
Great. Now I'm going to go over to Sarah so she can report on the LPC.
The LPC talked about training opportunities for library publishers, and we talked about both formal training opportunities, including collaborations with iSchools or other higher education programs, and community training opportunities by and for the LPC participants, or with participation from outside groups, developing training for LPC participants in both technical and higher level, more theoretical topics, including working with different platforms, business models, copyright, a whole host of different issues that are important to this community right now, and that currently there aren't current venues that are offering training and support for those new roles.
Y'all are all being very concise. I appreciate it. All right, who would like to talk here?
Our group talked about open review, and we were thinking that there's a lot of models out there, whether it's Comment Press, Wikipedia, whether it's double-blind review, blind review, a bunch of mixtures of reviews. I mean, what we would like to see is more clarity in what these are, like the CCBY that we throw out, we understand what it is. we kind of need a clarity in the kinds of review mechanisms and models that we have, an understandable track between what it is and here's an example and what are the benefits of each. That would be helpful. We also thought that it would map more nicely to the promotions and tenure guidelines if it was more understood, and the awareness that the faculty had was, hey, this is what it is, it follows what our needs are, it'll work. Build the trust by clarity, I think. So much of it varies, so we also talked about weighting the factors and including some innovative ideas about whether some peer review is at the article level, an atom, or at the molecule level, at the journal. So it's important to recognize that things are getting kind of messy and fun, which we thought was very fun. One place to start, we thought the student research journals are a great place, less risk and more innovative, that we could play with the ideas of the open review, so that was a good suggestion. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you. Now to this group. Who would like the mic? Daniel?
Thank you. Our group assess current scholarly communication trend and future trends. And we try to see factors that affected current scholarly communication, like some of the issues that drive publishing. As one of the main factors was existing promotion policy. It doesn't encourage publishing in open access, and particularly for new young faculty, they have very little incentive to publish in open access. So that one main factor is a stumbling block for our group, really. So how can we change that? Like, how can that promotion policy by itself affect current and future open access movement? And we try to see the open access movement in general is that started from bottom up or top down. And the consensus among this group seems, although the movement starts from bottom up at individual level, but the solution should come from top down, because it has many involved. Unless the university administration buy the whole idea of open access, it will be difficult. So right now it's coming up and it's not even halfway, and the pace is really slow. So in order to push the pace a little faster, there are some suggestions. Some of the suggestions include supporting gold open access by various ways. For example, grant some money for junior faculty. I mentioned that's a good way. And also, there may not be the same support for different disciplines. And some members mentioned redirecting some money from different library and institution funds. And there is also another suggestion as emerging trend. Is TDL, for example, host open journal system. And again, for those kind of issue, there will be a sustainability issue. So whether the current or future issue, some of the life cycle management issue will be common. For example, how can we ensure discoverability, whether it's current or future. The other one, the worst scenario again, if we push too hard and publishers bankrupt or disappear, what are the challenge and opportunity? Who can take the scholarly communication as who will be the owner? Is it a library, is that professional society or institutions or consortiums? So those are some of the issues we kind of touched upon, and so the suggestion is consortium should play a little active role, more active role, but again, top down. I mean, the university administration should buy the idea and convince and support. Otherwise, the movement might be really slow. So that's the final suggestion you have.
moving on.
Hi, we were the repository librarian support group, and we didn't really come to any conclusions. We just chatted. We talked a little bit about the aggregation of repository information. So how can you search multiple repositories at once? And there isn't really a great way to do that, but we talked a little bit about different ways that you can do that. We talked about changing roles within the libraries and touched a little bit on the fact that most of us have more than just the repository in our job titles and the different things that we do, and how it would be really nice if we didn't have to try to do 5 different things at once. Talked a little bit about the organization of libraries, different platforms that are used for repositories, and a little bit about outreach. And we got to, we have a non-librarian in the group, and so we got to chat a little bit about libraries in general, and not necessarily just the repository piece of it.
Thank you. Okay, I know not all groups fully formed, but over here? Okay.
Hi, sorry I'm in the middle here. I'll have to turn around halfway through. So we were talking about Vivo and in general visualizing linked open data and how it relates to these topics. Vivo is a linked data platform that you basically assign profiles to all the authors and researchers in an institution. You can assign them roles within departments, within schools, within research areas, and you use this as a access layer to figure out connections between researchers. They can put up a publication and designate their co-authors so that eventually you can build a web of all the people in your system that have co-authored papers together. And more than that, more than just a hub and spoke of this person's co-authored with this person, then all those spokes can connect to other people, and you can start seeing the connections beyond them, and you can start seeing the connections within research areas. There's other systems like this, or other systems that do similar things. You have VF and Web of Sciences. You have ORCIDs that give IDs for this, and Vivo accepts ORCIDs. But what we went from, you know, not a lot of people knew what Vivo was talking about how this can help, especially in a library environment. One of the things that happened at Texas A&M is that they did a subject analysis and found that they were doing polymer technology research at 3 different schools within the university. And you can imagine what kind of administrative and research synergies they could leverage if they could have made that connection and start combining budgets and start combining personnel. So using tools like these can lead to greater efficiencies like that. And then you can also think within the research process. I'll turn around now since I've been having my back to you. That, you know, when you search for a resource and you come across it, not only can you click on perhaps the author and find other articles authored by that author, but then you could use this linked open data set to figure out resources authored by just co-authors with that author. So obviously if person A authors something with B, or person B and authors something with person C, then if person B and C authored another article, that might be relevant to your search, and you could use this kind of data set to put that in front of a user. And we thought that'd be a pretty powerful use. Of course, this comes with pretty big issues of control. Who's controlling this data? Who's controlling vocabulary such as the research area terminology? And finally, staffing. Who is going to create a record for everybody? I think Texas A&M, you have 2,800 records to create. So that's a pretty big undertaking. Wish you luck with that.
There are groups in front? Yeah.
So our group had a conversation about costs and funding and audiences, sort of how those things interrelate and what's involved in each of those. As the conversation evolved, we did raise or identify several different environmental factors or drivers. Among those were MOOCs as an emerging type of education and what the implications were with respect to sources of information to support those. We noted that staffing is down in many different areas and that the trend for reduced funding, there's a trend for reduced funding in higher education generally. And one of the trade-offs then we discussed was if we're going to do something to support as libraries or administration, universities, to support open access through a payment in some kind, in another way, it means a trade-off. And those are not clear right now, how we would accomplish that. Does it mean canceling subscriptions, buying fewer materials, or some other option? We also talk about the federal mandates that have been mentioned earlier and the implications for those. So with respect to costs, we broke those down and we're focused primarily on the article issue. There's first copy costs, which now vary somewhat depending on how they're created, whether, what the technological software implications are for creating those. There are dissemination costs and then preservation or long-term storage costs and access. And we discussed kind of what does it really cost? What does a real article processing charge cover? The costs we heard were either from $99 from Sage, and I think that's what PeerJ also is charging for their new venture. Many of them seem to range in the $700 to $3,000 range. And we think a lot of that depends on what you're actually getting or what's being done to that in terms of the coding, XML, the metadata, the degree of copy editing, the kind of color or illustrations, management of the data within that, and that sort of thing. So there's a wide range of costs, not just creating a PDF and putting it in a file somewhere. We also followed up on some of the earlier conversations with respect to what goes into a cost model, what those are based on. We talked a little bit about the labor side of things that was addressed in some of our earlier presentations today. What does free mean versus paid, professional versus non-professional contributions toward the publication process. We talked about the long-term costs to preserve digital formats. One of the issues we raised was if there's a one-time cost for an article processing charge, how does that get sustained over time? This was one of the issues that came up in a conversation with folks at PeerJ who were starting that out. If it's just a one-time charge, but you're making a commitment to preserve that over a long period of time, what are the resources you're going to identify or to cover the long-term sustainability issues? And finally, we talked about who pays and who are the current payors for this. Libraries have obviously been a traditional format of this, or payer for this kind of service. University administrations or departments cover some of that. External groups, federal governments or other agencies, in the UK you have the Wellcome Foundation and others. Authors obviously pay. And in some cases corporations pay, and that varies depending on how they want to use the information. So wide-ranging topic conversation.
Thanks. Did I catch everybody? Wonderful. Okay, I promise I'm not going to hold you that much longer, just a few little announcements. Get where everybody can see me. First off, I want to thank you all so much for coming and participating today. I've really enjoyed the level of engagement, the high energy, and I'm really looking forward to tomorrow to see it continue, and I hope you are all as well. So one quick note to our speakers and our guests that participated in the discussion forum yesterday. If you'll all come see me after I finish talking, I have just a quick message for you. Also, some of you have been asking about the PowerPoint slides. We are planning on posting those to the website following the conference. And I don't know if you've noticed Jimmy back there, but you're also being video recorded, and that will be on the website too. There is a reception immediately following the close of the meeting today, and it will be through those doors out there. Some of you may recall mention of a drink ticket, and the really observant ones will know that you did not receive a drink ticket. That is because we love you all so much, we decided to make it an open bar. Yes, there will also be non-alcoholic drinks and some snacks. So I believe that is all I have to say, and thank you. Oh, yes? Sure. I'll try to get that put together and emailed. I can't promise it before tomorrow, but I will try to get that out next week. I hope that's soon enough. Any other questions? On what? Okay. Yeah, sure. Great slides are already available on Figshare. So, because he's better than the rest of them, apparently. All right, with that, I release you, and have a good night.